most influential teacher?
Probably her, because she knew how to take care of the kids. She was a mother, as good as a teacher that she was.
Mm-hmm.
She knew how to take care of the children, and that's very important. This is why now you see us wanting to fund pre-kindergarten,
Right.
Early childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to be able to develop a child in the infant years all the way to the first, second, and third grade. And that's where we start measuring the success of the child,
Mm-hmm.
by looking at what he has accomplished in those 9 years that they're in public education, also in learning, brain development.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't impress enough on people that these children that have child care, they need to have a person that can develop their brain also.
Right.
Because children are learning since as soon as 3 or 6 months into their lives, they start that brain development.
That's
And
right.
it's amazing what a child can absorb during that.
Do you remember what your childhood ambition was? Did you
No,
have anything in particular that you would have?
not in my childhood. We were in such a small world
Uh-huh.
that we didn't have the teachers, the mentoring. So when you walked out of the 12th grade, you were pretty much on your own. But I had a superintendent that was very interested in us, and was able to contact colleges and universities to see where we could be placed to continue our education after we got out of high school. So we didn't really have a care in the world,
Mm-hmm.
as people may say, because just going to college for a couple of years was something unheard of in the 1950s.
That's right.
So I was thankful that our superintendent was able to place us in the college where we learned to some extent, and we were our own fault that we didn't continue that education. But I had to come back and start all over again.
Did you play sports of any kind, Lucky?
Yes, baseball,
Baseball?
basketball.
Mhm.
We didn't have a football team in Peckwood, but
Yeah.
I was okay, a set shot specialist, they call me, in high school. But I was able to play baseball and play basketball through my high school years.
Who's the first girl you kissed?
Oh, I can't remember.
Don't tell me you don't remember.
I remember the name of my childhood or high school girlfriend,
Uh-huh.
but I can't remember who I was even allowed to kiss a girl at the time.
Yeah, that was a lot different back then.
It was a lot different. The parents were always watching us, so we had to be very careful to at least, if the best that we could do was hold hands.
Hold hands, huh?
Yeah.
Then you have how many children?
I have a daughter
Uh-huh.
and 2 sons,
2 sons.
and I have 9 grandkids
Oh my gosh.
and 3 great grandkids.
What advice would you give your grandkids today?
Well, to try to maintain the integrity of the family.
Mm-hmm.
For the parents' sake, the kids need to be together and try to maintain some kind of control over their kids,
Mm-hmm.
because I see so many problems with the youngsters anymore. There's all kinds of peer pressures, so that they need advice. I think a good example of how kids cater up to somebody is now that the Pope is in America,
Mm-hmm.
how the children just love to go there and just touch him or get some kind of a word from him. So that relationship between the elderly and the children is so important that I'm hopeful that my kids and their kids can maintain the integrity of the family while the kids are growing up.
Well, once they learn to talk instead of doing this all day long, they
I wish
that
they
communication,
Well,
face-to-face communication is so important.
When you were in high school, you had to read a book, and express yourself in terms of self-expression about that book. And you didn't have a computer or a little laptop in front of you that tells you everything anymore.
I know.
So
you had to use this computer.
How do you retain that knowledge in that part of the brain? What is it? A tenth of the brain that you use? How do you develop that if you have everything in front of you?
That's right.
And if we were to go to a class in college and take accounting, we weren't allowed to take an adding machine.
No, we couldn't use them.
We had to do it up here.
That's right.
And so I'm wondering whether we've done a disservice to some extent to children to make so much available for them. But nonetheless,
time will tell.
That's the world around us, and time will tell.
You mentioned reading, Lucky. Is there a particular book that had a big effect on you, or a particular movie that you've seen?
Ernie Pyle, I wrote the first report on Ernie Pyle's book about the war. I still remember he was in a military uniform with a helmet and was shown writing. And that was impressive to me. So when they asked me in college, write a book report on some author, some person, I selected Ernie Pyle.
Well, you couldn't have picked a better one.
Well, he was great.
And he was from New Mexico.
Yes, well, New Mexico. I used to read other books. Zane Grey was a favorite of mine to read, but I never did any kind of report on that individual.
Yes.
Yet the books about the West, it was so interesting.
Right, right. You still read today?
A little bit, not much. And I can do better by hearing and absorbing through my hearing. My vision is okay. I can observe documentaries, and we have so much of that on television anymore that I like to watch the news, instant news.
Yeah.
It's that's the way to keep up with the current events of the world. So I love to watch the news worldwide.
Me
What's
too.
happening all over the world. And then, of course, you get closer to home and see what happened in Albuquerque, Santa Fe. So you have a complete knowledge, and you can learn so much from just absorbing, whether it's by reading or by listening, looking. And so it's all the vital parts of the body that we have, like our mind, our eyes, our mouth when we talk. It's so important that we don't understand that. Once you start getting old and you start losing sight of the most important features of your body.
Right. Now, in the 2014 legislature, I have to say that was pretty rough. You ended up with just a few bills, but you had a special session. How did everybody finally come together for that one-day special session to pass that huge bill?
When I got back in the regular session, I was there about maybe 5 sessions.
That's right, because you were in the hospital.
I was in the hospital. And I got back and with major disappointment when I saw the number of bills that were tabled.
Yes.
A process that should be done only with bad legislation. And when the session came to an end, I wrote a letter to the editor about the importance of capital outlay. And I expressed in that letter that we ought to come together, the House, the Senate, and the governor, and we could do it in maybe 2 or 3 days, that we could pick up what was left of the bill that died during the regular session and bring it together for all of us to debate it, to discuss it, to amend it. And we did that. And we did more in 1 day than we did in 60 days in terms of capital outlay process.
That's right. That was pretty remarkable to get that through. And it was Republicans and Democrats alike coming together, which makes sense, which is not going on in this country now. There's so much diverse thinking and viciousness really out there. So that was a real credit for you and for the whole House and Senate.
And Senate. Well, hopefully the Congress will get together No, they're talking about shutting government down.
Oh, yeah.
That's horrible.
It's
You know, if they
ridiculous.
can come together at least and keep government open, so people can be served, it's critical, and it's bad politics. I would call it politics. So hopefully that won't happen. I think the message is getting to him from the public.
Oh,
When
it's
you
out
rank the
there.
Congress in terms of how popular are they, not very popular. So
It's-
hopefully they'll get that message, and yeah, we have to elect a new president. Everybody wants to be president, and some of them are falling off the cliff already, and you know, for whatever reasons. Hopefully the public will make the right decision on that.
I hope so too. Lucky, you've got a session coming up in January. This will probably be the last session that you're in the House of Representatives, because you're going to retire.
Yes.
What do you plan on doing for that final session?
Well, the final session will end in terms of my serving during the session, but I have to serve the rest of that year till December. So I'll be able to provide some input for the next 60-day session.
Okay.
So I'll be doing that between the end of the regular session and December to try to prepare again, and whoever takes over, for them to have a budget that the LFC, the Finance Committee, will prepare between the session and December. So we'll be looking for a good presentation, something that'll affect the public, and the effects that I'm talking about is a good funding for education, healthcare, and public safety. Those are the major components of the budget.
Okay.
So if we can get a good budget for that, then it's up to the executive to execute that and come up with appropriate services for government.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. Do you have anything to say about your life here in New Mexico? How I think you've been very lucky, very fortunate. You have the right name to have been doing what you've been doing for the last 40 years.
Well, it's been rewarding, and I looked through my high school, public school career, and I remember the name that came to me from a teacher from Chicago. And he said, there's a family in Chicago that has your name, Luciano.
Oh,
And
right.
yeah, and he said, and they call that family Lucky Luciano family. So he said, I'm going to give you that name for purposes of discussion, and he did. Very effective. People don't know me by Luciano.
No.
But you name Lucky, and they say, oh yeah, we heard about you, or we read about you, or something.
And everybody heard about Lucky Luciano in the East.
Well, he was a sort of a different person, but nonetheless, you know, an enforcer.
He was an enforcer.
And, but he was very effective, so I don't know in what manner you have to gain power to be able to be effective, but I'm thankful that I kept that name for the time being.
Well, I think that's great. Lucky, we plan on getting with you during the session in January of 2016, but I'm glad you came on today to talk a little bit about yourself. And I like your mustache, incidentally. I've named you El Bigote now.
You have.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, the first time that I ran, I grew a mustache, and then I shaved it off after I won. I thought about it now that being my last years of my representing my district, so I said I'm going to grow it again, and more than likely it'll come off. Maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it there for a purpose of identification with my grandpa and other folks in the family. So I may keep it, but I'm not sure yet.
Well, it's just a pleasure having you, Lucky, and as far as I'm concerned, in this station, we appreciate everything you've done for us to come on, and we've had so many compliments on your performance here, and our station is very thankful. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the fact that they invite me, but I also want to thank the public for allowing me to serve for as many years as I've served, and hopefully someone will continue to serve them just as well. because they've been very responsive. So I'm satisfied that perhaps I represented them well, and I hope that that continues.
Thank you, Lucky.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
everything.
inviting me.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Santa Fe, for tuning in.